Hello viewers, today in this part of the program we are going to discuss about the atmosphere, what are the different components and structure of atmosphere. Then we will have the discussion on the pressure, what exactly the atmospheric pressure is, how it can be measured, and then what is the difference between the weather and the climate. Now first is what exactly the atmosphere is. Atmosphere, it is the dynamic layer surrounding the earth above its surface, containing various gases, moisture, aerosols, etc. Now this atmosphere, it extends over about 400-kilometer height, and many meteorological events and effects occur in it. The thickness of gaseous envelope is equal to 1% of the earth mean radius. So atmosphere is basically, it is the surrounding envelope of the gases over the earth, and it extends to the long height in the sky, that is about the 400 kilometers, and it is very important with respect to the agriculture because so many phenomena occur in the atmosphere. Now the usefulness of the atmosphere, it fulfills the biological oxygen demand of the animal life, plant life. Then many physical, chemical and hydrological processes responsible for weather and climate occur in atmosphere only, and we all know that atmosphere is a big reservoir of the nitrogen. So study of the atmosphere is very important because so many gases and especially the oxygen and nitrogen is present in the atmosphere, which is responsible for the so many activities and which decides the life on the earth. Now the composition of the atmosphere consists of the gases, the moisture, the solid impurities or the aerosols. Among the gases there are nitrogen, oxygen, argon, carbon dioxide and nitrous oxide, sulfur dioxide, ammonia. So many gases are there, but overall if we see the composition in this graph as shown in the here, that oxygen, it contributes 21% to the total composition, then nitrogen 78%, and other gases like argon 0.9%, CO2 0.03%. Besides these gases, there is a moisture in the form of the water vapor. Then there are solid impurities or the aerosols, which includes the dust particles, carbon particles, salt particles, water droplets and ice crystals, spores, pollen grains, smoke, etc. These all together make the atmosphere. Now we have learned that the atmosphere basically it consists of two important gases, that is the nitrogen and oxygen, and besides that there are traces of the other gases. Now what are the non-variable and variable components in the atmosphere? Non-variable components, some gases of atmosphere remain constant at surface of the globe up to the height of the 80 to 88 kilometer. This is due to transportation of the gases on continental level, diffusion of the gases, turbulent mixing and convection, and that's why this particular part of the atmosphere, that is up to the height of 88 kilometer, there is almost remain constant, and that's why these components are called as non-variable components. Another is the variable components. Some gases or components of the atmosphere changes with change in the time, place and the season, and these components are therefore called as the variable component. So in the atmosphere the different gases are there and some impurities are there, and they change over the time and the place, but there are certain gases and impurities which doesn't change, they are called as non-variable component. Now structure of the atmosphere can be studied on the basis of chemical composition and on the basis of vertical temperature gradient. So first, on the basis of the chemical composition, atmosphere may be divided as homosphere or heterosphere. Based on the vertical temperature gradient, the structure of the atmosphere is divided as the troposphere, the stratosphere, mesosphere, and thermosphere. So, to understand about the atmosphere, it is very important to learn about the structure of the atmosphere, and it may vary according to its composition as well as its characteristics. Now, based on the chemical composition, the first is the homosphere. In the lower region up to the height of 88 km, various gases are thoroughly mixed and are homogeneous by the process of turbulent mixing and diffusion. It is called as homosphere. But in case of heterosphere, the gaseous composition changes and various gases form separate compositional layering individually, and that's why they vary in their characteristics, and that's why it is called as heterosphere. So, we can study the structure of atmosphere based on the composition of the different gases. So, up to certain height, that is 88 km, the gases composition because of turbulent mixing is almost constant. So, it is homosphere, but above this height there is a separate layering of the different composition of the gases. So, it is heterosphere. So, second is the based on the vertical temperature gradient. On the basis of the vertical temperature difference, the atmosphere can be divided into 4 horizontal layers or the cells, and these are first, in case of lower atmosphere, these layers are troposphere and stratosphere. In case of upper atmosphere, these layers are mesosphere and thermosphere. So, atmosphere structure can further be studied on the basis of the temperature gradient in the sky or the atmosphere, and based on there are 4 layers of the atmosphere. Now, the first important layer is the troposphere. It has an elevation of about 16 km at the equator and only 8 km at the poles. Its average altitude is about 11 km. It contains near about 75% of the gaseous mass of the total atmosphere, water vapor and aerosols. It is the realm of the clouds, storm and convective motion. The outstanding characteristics of the troposphere is the uniform decrease in the temperature with increase in altitude until the minimum temperature of minus 50 degrees centigrade to 60 degrees centigrade is reached. The isothermal layer marking the end of temperature decrease is called as tropopause. So, when we study the structure of the atmosphere, the first very important layer is the troposphere, and troposphere is very important layer because it involves so many activities and there is a particular temperature gradient. Now, the second important layer is the stratosphere. This is the second atmospheric layer above tropopause, which extends upwards about up to 50 km. The density of the ozone is maximum at 22 to 25 km height. The ozone at the upper layer of this sphere absorbs the ultraviolet rays from the sun, and the temperature may exceed 0 degrees centigrade. In the stratosphere, the temperature increases with increase in height. The stratosphere contains much of the total atmospheric ozone. So, second important layer of atmosphere is the stratosphere, and it extends up to the height of the 50 km. This layer is very important with respect to the existence of the ozone gas in this particular layer. The next layer is the mesosphere. This is the third layer of the atmosphere. A thin isothermal layer called stratopause is the boundary layer which separates stratosphere and mesosphere. Above the warm stratopause, temperature decreases with increase in height to a minimum of minus 90 degrees centigrade at about 80 km height. Pressure in this layer is very low and decreases from 1 millibar at about 50 km to 0.01 millibar at 80 kilometers. The thin isothermal layer which separates mesosphere from the thermosphere is called as mesopause. So, third important layer of the atmosphere is the mesosphere, and mesosphere is very important because in this particular layer the atmosphere is further rarefied and the temperature gradient is increased. The next layer is the thermosphere. Thermosphere, this is the outermost shell of the atmosphere and it lies above 80 kilometer height and it may extend up to the 400 kilometer or more. In this sphere, the atmospheric densities are extremely low. In this layer, temperature increases with increase in height due to absorption of the ultraviolet radiation from the sun. Probably it reaches to 950 degree centigrade at 350 kilometer to 1700 degree centigrade at an undefined upper limit. But these temperatures are essentially theoretical. So, the last layer, which is called as the outmost layer of the atmosphere, it is the thermosphere. Thermosphere is again very important because it is a layer in which the activities are normally rare and there is temperature rises very high in this particular layer, and but it has been found that when astronomer puts its hand outside in the sky, it rarely experiences such a very high temperature. Now, next is about the climate. We know that climate is a generalized weather or the summation of the weather conditions over a given region during a comparatively longer period. Climate is weather conditions related to larger areas like zone, state, country, part of continents or whole of continents, longer duration of time like month, season or year, and best described by the normals and averages, that is arid climate, tropical climate, etc. Here climate means it is the long term averages of climatic variables, and it refers to the long term average weather conditions in a particular area for the particular time. Now, next is the weather. Weather is a state or condition of atmosphere at a given place and at a given time. It is daily variation or condition of lower layer of atmosphere. Weather pertains to smaller area like village, city or even district, smaller duration of time, that is part of day or complete day, and is expressed by numerical values of meteorological parameters. Some examples are hot day, rainy day, cloudy day or dry weather. So, weather is it's the instant condition of the atmosphere and different variables of the climate, and it varies from place to place at a particular time. So, there is a difference between the climate and weather. Climate means long term averages, weather means it's a instant condition of the weather parameters. The importance of the elements of weather means climate summarizes the long term weather impact, regulates and determines the stability of crop plants for a region, while weather decides the growth and development and ultimately the yield of crop grown in that region under the prevailing conditions. We have known the difference between the climate and the weather, but both have their own influence on the agriculture and growth and development of the plants. Climate decides the distribution of the crop plants or the type of the crop to be grown in a region, but weather decides the growth and development of the plants which are being grown in a region. The next is the air pressure. Technically, pressure is defined as the force per unit area. The atmosphere pressure is defined as pressure exerted by a column of air with a cross-sectional area of a given unit extending from the earth's surface to the uppermost boundary of the atmosphere. With increase in elevation, the atmospheric pressure decreases. Atmospheric pressure does not have direct influence on crop growth. It is, however, an important parameter in weather forecasting. We know that atmospheric pressure is an important variable of the weather, and as such it doesn't affect the crop growth and production, but it affects directly to the movement and the distribution of the different weather variables. To standard atmospheric pressure, it can be measured in the units of that is millibars, bars. The standard atmospheric pressure is given at mean sea level at 45 degree latitude and at temperature of 270 degree Kelvin. The standard atmospheric pressure is equal to 29.92 inches or 76 centimeter or 760 millimeter, or it is also equal to the 1013.25 millibar or 101.3 kilopascal, or it may be represented in terms of 14.7 pounds per square inch. So, these are the units of the measurements of the atmospheric pressure. Now, isobar is very important in the study of atmospheric pressure. Any line joining the places of equal atmospheric pressure on the weather map is known as isobar. Where isobars are closely spaced, a rapid and steep change in the pressure is indicated. When isobars are widely spreading, a slow change in pressure is indicated. Two isobars are never cross each other. So, in the atmospheric pressure study, isobar is very important because these are the lines which indicate the lines of the atmospheric equal pressure in the atmosphere. Now, factors affecting atmospheric pressure. The different factors affecting the atmospheric pressure are temperature of air, altitude, water vapor in air, revolution and gravitation of the earth. We know that as we studied in case of the structure of atmosphere, the atmospheric pressure comes down as we go on the higher elevation. So, there are the different factors like altitude is very important in case of atmospheric structure, which affect the atmospheric pressure. Now, measurement of the air pressure. This can be measured by an instrument called barometer. There are two types of barometers, mercury barometer and aneroid barometer. Of these two, most accurate instrument is the mercurial barometer. This is used as a standard for the calibrating others. And there are two types of the mercurial barometers, Fortin's barometer and Q pattern barometer. So, atmospheric pressure or air pressure can be measured with the help of the instrument called as barometer. Now, this is a very important instrument, and a barometer, it is necessary to know about it. A barometer is a scientific instrument used in meteorology to measure atmospheric pressure. A mercury barometer is a device that uses the various physical properties of mercury contained in a tube to measure barometric pressure, also known as air pressure or atmospheric pressure. When the barometric pressure drops, for example, it is possible that storms, rain or wind are on the way. An increase in barometric pressure, on the other hand, could indicate that dry fair weather could appear soon. So, here barometer pressure will indicate that if there is a decrease in pressure, there may be storms or the rains. If there is a upside in the atmospheric pressure, means almost a constant or stable atmosphere would be there. There will be no much changes in the weather. Then another is the barograph. It is a recording type of the aneroid barometer. The changes in the atmospheric pressure are reflected on a vacuum chamber either by contraction or expansion. These changes are magnified by a system of levers and communicated to a long pan arm which marks on a graph paper. The graph sheet is wrapped around a drum which rotates through clockwork mechanism. The graph sheet is calibrated vertically in pressure units and horizontally in time. The atmospheric pressure is expressed in millibars. So, the another important instrument for measuring the pressure is the barograph. It measures the atmospheric pressure automatically. Now, these are the different units of measurement, bar and millibar and pascal. 1 bar is equal to the 10 raised to 6 power dynes per square centimeter, and 1 millibar is equal to 10 raised to 3 dynes per square centimeter, and nowadays Pascal is also being used, that is 1 Newton per square meter. The SI unit for pressure is Pascal, and this is equal to the force of 1 Newton per square meter. Now, the standard atmospheric pressure at main sea level and latitude of 45 degree at a temperature of this 0 degree centigrade is 1 atmosphere. Now, it is also important to know about the isobar, that is the line drawn on map connecting the points having equal atmospheric pressure. Then isobar means a map line connecting places of equal atmospheric pressure gradient. So, these atmospheric pressure can be measured in terms of the bar, millibar or the Pascal, and bar is used to show the equal lines of atmospheric pressure, and isobars are used to show the pressure gradient. Hello viewers, in this part of the lecture we have learnt about the atmospheric pressure, then structure of the atmosphere, and then weather and climate, and measurement of the atmospheric pressure. We learned that the atmosphere consists of the 4 basic layers, and the first important layer is the troposphere, where the important activities of the atmosphere takes place. And the last layer is the thermosphere, which is a rarefied layer in which the temperature is very high, and it is possibly the out of reach of our many activities of the human being. And further we have learned about the pressure, that is very important for the so many other weather variables which affect the weather and climate of a region. And we have also known that there are the barometer and barographs which are generally used for the measurement of the atmospheric pressure. And it is important that both pressure and weather and climate, they combine, their effect can be known largely when we are fully aware about the structure of the atmosphere and different activities which are taking place in the atmosphere. I hope you might have enjoyed this lecture. Thank you.